The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm CJ, and my co-host is currently still at Government Center, I'm assuming, doing his insurance thing as an IAC representative and a retiree representative. So let's get right to the business of the day. Last night at the South End Neighborhood Association meeting, which is held at the Good Shepherd Parish on South Main Street, formerly St. Patrick's Church, they had a guest being Mayor C. Samuel Sutter. People were actually happy to see him. They wanted to speak to him, and people have been saying that he's not returning phone calls and he's unavailable, and people don't know why. What's happening here. Please let us know, Mr. Mayor. We wanted to know. So prior to the meeting, the mayor proceeded to tell me that I was wrong in my statements to the city council regarding snow removal as opposed to snow plowing. And I started to get into it, but he had to speak, so he then took the podium, started to speak to the people that were assembled, and insisted that Fall River did a great job on snow management here in Fall River for what we have. In essence, what we have available in resources, which, I'm going to call bull on, because we've done better in previous years, and we've done better with previous snowstorms. But that's, again, my opinion. It's interesting, though, that the mayor then said that he compared the response of cities and towns similar to Fall River, i.e. Providence, Cranston, New Bedford, and found that we did a much better job. And I tried to say to the mayor prior to the meeting that appearances become the reality for the people of Fall River. And to them, the appearances, Fall River response was poor at best. And to say that it's a $1.2 million snow removal also shows a great amount of waste, in my opinion. And when I look at what was done and how it was done, there was a great amount of waste, and there was a great amount of poor management, I would think. Do I think that calling out Ken Pacheco and saying, we want you to be fired, is what we should do? No. But I think we need an adequate plan of correction, and an adequate plan to no longer use plowing as the main means of snow management. We need to seriously look at snow removal. Now, I've spoken about that before, as you know, and the mayor actually said I was wrong on that before the meeting, and it really flabbergasted me. I was dumbfounded by it. When this has been used across the country in areas with a lot more snow than we get, much more efficiently. So I have to ask, why am I wrong? So, needless to say, another person who was in the meeting, during the meeting, brought up snow removal. Because since I mentioned it, people have been posting snow removal videos from Canada and elsewhere all over Facebook, showing how efficient this method of snow management is. And he turned around and he says, well, these areas are not gateway cities. Why? What's so different about a gateway city? We get snow just like everyone else. We just manage it like we're in 1940 instead of 2015. We do everything in Fall River as though we're in 1940 instead of 2015. Sometimes we do things like we're in 1840, but that's another story. But when people at that meeting started to say, oh no, they do this in New Hampshire, they do this in Maine, they do this in upstate New York. And even today I found out that they do it also out in the Worcester area. Now all of a sudden, this is an acceptable thing because the mayor turned around and said, well, I'll now have to look into this last night. Am I wrong or am I right? I can't be both. So this is the question we have. And a lot of issues came up in this. And yesterday it was announced by the city council agenda for the ordinance committee that the mayor has requested that the chief operating officer or the chief of operations position be removed from the ordinance, as that person is going to become the chief of staff, which is already in ordinance. So one way or another, this person was getting the job, even though they don't want to live in Fall River. So again, this is indicative of how the elected body feels that their desires supersede the needs and the wants of the people of Fall River. Do I think that a mayor should have the right to select the people that he feels he can trust and he feels can do the job better than anyone else? Sure. By no means should he be denied that. But at least make it look good. At least put out a posting to ask people to apply for the job. I mean, and then to turn around and ask for an emergency preamble on the position of special assistant to the mayor, a $45,000 a year job for what appears to be a glorious receptionist, I think is just beyond ridiculous. And I do believe that we're getting our co-host in his situation setting up accordingly. And let's see if we can bring him on board.
Hello out there. I would have been on time, CJ, had it not been for the snow removal.
Hold on.
Okay.
For some reason, we don't have...
I am on mic 12.
There you go.
Okay. Can you
We got you now.
Can you hear me now? I would have been on time had I not been stuck for 20 minutes behind a truck on a side street in Fall River due to the lack thereof of snow removal. They were trying to get a 4-foot wide truck through a 3-foot space, and rather than back it up, they tried for 15 or 20 minutes to try to make that 3-foot truck, 4-foot truck stick. You get through a 3-foot space, and it was very frustrating to say the least. And I know you've had some discussion on snow removal, but I can tell you out there, if you can, stay on the main roads, stay on the wider streets, because there are some streets in this city that is still impassable or very extremely narrow. There's supposed to be 2 ways, yet there's only 1 lane. It's still a catastrophe out there on the side streets.
Well, we do such efficient snow removal in Fall River, as I was speaking about just before you came in. And the wonderful job, according to the mayor and his statistics, that we did. So it is what it is. But I also spoke about the fact that he's asked for an emergency preamble to hire his glorified receptionist, and he's just going to move Lou Pacheco's job from chief of operations to chief of staff. So you get what you want one way or the other.
Well, I think it's rather ironic. As you know, I was at a meeting at the Government Center of the Insurance Advisory Committee earlier, and I was talking to some of the people there from the various unions, and apparently there is a rumor to the effect that they're going to ask for pay concessions. There are tiered pay concessions. I believe they talked about a tiering system, and based on what tier you selected would be how many bodies you lose. And I think it's rather ironic in the face of the fact that we're creating new positions and new liabilities and expenses for the city while we're asking for pay concessions, which will ultimately result in layoffs of people who actually provide provide the services, which again is another problem. So we've got some issues here, I think, that we have to deal with. And
Chip, remember, I mean, the mayor has asked for every department to prepare 2 budgets, one with a 5% cut and one with a 10% cut. Okay, the level funded one, which would be the third, that's always prepared, but they've actually been asked to prepare a 5% cut and 10% cut. And of course, we know that those jobs that we're going to cut in the tiering system will not be administrators. Because last night, the mayor spoke very highly of John Perry and Ken Pacheco. John Perry, who drives around in a city truck with tinted windows, which we still can't figure out why. And Ken Pacheco, which I have a great deal of respect for Ken Pacheco. Ken goes above and beyond a lot of times. So it's just very interesting to see that we're going to cut the minions again and not the administrators.
Well, again, we have the situation of government at its worst. Again, cutting the people who provide the services. Cutting, if there are cuts, 10%, 5%, which are translated into bodies, I guarantee you there will not be a lot of administrative or supervisory positions cut. The reality is, in most of these departments, these supervisory positions are normally given to people who are connected. And people who are connected never lose their jobs. And in the face of these concessions or pay concessions they'll probably be asking for. As I said, on a previous show, I read all the pay increases that were given throughout the state last year. 23% to the sheriffs and the judges, 15% to the DAs, 1.6 million set aside for state house pay raises to our representatives, and additional monies forthcoming. It's kind of like it's kind of like we're bipolar in this state. We want, we complain about a lack of money, but we continue to give the people who do the least the pay raises, because it's the oldest ploy in politics. Cut services and force the people into choosing services or pay more taxes. Well, there is another alternative. That is, vote these people who do this out of office.
Chip, I've looked at the city council now, I've looked at the school committee, and I've looked at several mayors. And like you, we've had our run-ins with them, we've argued with them, we've fought, we've always been gentlemen about it. But in 20 plus years, I've never seen the system change. And people wonder why Fall River is still in the financial fiasco it's in. They turn around and they say, well, we used to be the manufacturing capital of the world. We produced all the clothes you wore on your back, and we did all of that. But they pulled out of here, and, we weren't ready for that. Why weren't you ready for that? It's not like it was a big secret. It was happening progressively over a period of almost 10 years. But for 10 years, Fall River did its best, and you know what their best exercise is, don't you? Mm-hmm. Hiding their head in the sand. I mean, that's Fall River's best exercise, that's for sure.
Also one of their greatest attributes, and I see we have a guest, we'll be getting him on here shortly, but I've got to get this little thing out. One of the greatest things we also have is revisionist history, also called political amnesia. I love it when people talk about Fall River's golden age, a time when we had, 165,000 people, and there were jobs everywhere. Yeah, there were jobs everywhere. Kids were chained to the machines. We had child labor. This city was a crap hole then too. It just had a lot more people stuffed into a lot more cold water flats. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring in a book for Wednesday's show and read you the testimony in the 1800s of a mule spinner from Fall River, Massachusetts, who testified before the United States Senate on how he managed to survive on I don't know what it was, $300 or $200 a year for salary, and how he had to go and steal wood from the railroad ties and go down to the Taunton River to try to get some quahogs so they could eat. This was the golden age of Fall River. when we had millionaires sitting in the Highlands and people working for 11 cents an hour and 14-hour days chained to the machines in the mills. And that is not a golden age, people. That was an age of the poor being taken advantage of no labor laws, of repression, of basically in being an indentured servant. People were forced to work 14 hours. They had no protection, and it was not a golden age. We had a lot of people, but the city was not that great either. We had the privileged few then, as we have the privileged few today. And with that, we have a guest in our show today. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Josh Font to the audience. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Chip. It's always a pleasure to be on with you guys and, hanging out with you guys.
Well, it's nice, and I know you are a declared candidate for city council, and why don't you tell us a little bit about why you want to take on this awesome responsibility in a city like this?
Well, as you know, and CJ knows, a lot of people out there know I was one of the 12 on an affidavit to get the mayor out of office, which we succeeded in doing. The reason why, the number one reason why I want to run for city council is because I believe that with this recall, we can see more transparency. And I think that the people of Fall River finally have woken up, have seen the old politics in Fall River obviously be demolished, and they want to see a new road, a new future. Obviously, we elected a new mayor, which everybody's 50-50 on at the moment, but he's only been in office for 38 days, I think, as of today. So we'll have to see what he's going to be able to do, and in the next hopefully few weeks. Supposedly, I was also at the South End Neighborhood Association meeting yesterday, so he did promise some numbers on pay-as-you-throw and also on I think the recycling as well. So hopefully you'll have those numbers, and maybe we'll start to see a little more transparency, because that's what people are pushing for.
Well, I hope that's true. But numbers and data sometimes can be used to support some issues that maybe are not really, they can be used as a cover. What's more important to me is what I've seen over the course of the last decade or so, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, is a reduction in the amount of people who are delivering the necessary services to the people of Fall River. I see 2 new supervisors put up in the DPW, even though the complement of DPW is short. I see less firefighters. We see less services being given to the public, while we have greater fat in the government. We see a lot of supervisors. And, regardless of what the mayor says, he has begun to layer more people on. Let's see if he eliminates some people. We'll give him that opportunity. But as a city councilor, I'm going to put you on the spot as a man who's going to look for the city council. I want to know what your position is about, what our tax dollars should be spent on. Do you believe that we are underserviced and overmanaged in this city at this point in time?
Well, we're absolutely paying more and not getting the services we're supposed to be getting. A lot of it has to do right now with pay-as-you-throw and the fire department, with the fire department being understaffed, and we obviously know why that is. Pay-as-you-throw obviously lost $3 million. That ended up going to the fire department, which, if anybody watched Tuesday's meeting or attended Tuesday's meeting, there was some flare-ups there as far as the budget was concerned. As of right now, they're promising that the budget is balanced. Is it true? We don't know. We'll find out at the very, very last day. My issue with the budget itself is the previous administration, which was Flanagan's administration, brought in a SAFER grant, but yet did not plan for the future of those firefighters. So initially, the council obviously pushed for those extra firefighters because they wanted to be at a certain number, which I believe was 175 or so.
Yep.
So they're at 175. So initially, that $3 million from pay-as-you-throw, from sanitation, is paying for those 28 firefighters, I believe, or 25 firefighters. And so, as far as the $3 million is concerned, I think it's an issue that the people of Fall River have, because it's money that has been wasted, that has not been planned for, And, this administration is going to have its challenges in renegotiating certain contracts as far as the city's concerned. And as far as the administration, I think we are top heavy. And I think that, a few cuts here and there might make that difference as far as, the budget is concerned.
Well, I agree. I think we need a lot. We need a lot of cutting. We need a lot of reorganization. And the reality of that is that, we need to provide services. It's my opinion, and it's only mine. It's my opinion. But as a taxpayer, as someone who has been involved with negotiating with the city for a very long time, it really upsets me when I see my tax dollars being paid to people who provide me no services, while I see my services being curtailed and having less and less people to provide me those services. And it also upsets me when I see things that are that to me are basically contradictory. As CJ said, the mayor's asked for a budget to be produced with a 5% reduction, a 10% reduction. And in fact, if our city administrator was correct that we are on point, the budget is balanced, why do we need to look at a projected budget, with less money? CJ, your mic's off.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to shut it off. I had some work going on here in the booth. My big question is this: why are we already talking about a $5 to $7 million shortfall, which everyone thought was in this year's budget, but now maybe in next year's budget? Next year's budget hasn't even come out yet, and we're already talking about a shortfall. So where is this mysterious shortfall? Is it this year? Is it next year? What's happening? And the other big thing that I mentioned to Josh in the past, when I've spoken to you about this, we deal every year with, well, the free cash will take care of it. Let me give you the definition for free cash. Free cash means that the government has overtaxed you, and they have extra money. So how would you as a city councilor try to reduce the amount of over-collection of my tax dollars and the tax dollars of the people of Fall River, so that free cash is limited and not used as the stopgap for every single problem that Fall River seems to have when it comes to shortfalls?
Well, that's a really good question. My issues as of right now obviously fall into the fire department. We are understaffed, in that area. I truly believe we are understaffed on the police department as well. So I think that if we end up with a $3 million cash, flow that they're saying, I think that money should be invested back into the public safety, at least for now, until we can see what we can get down the road with this new budget that supposedly, Mayor Sutter is saying he's going to have some good economic development, issues there that he's going to be able to tackle. Now, whether or not that's true, the problem that I have right now is that no one is able to give us a clear-cut answer as to, what the numbers are or what the numbers are going to project. Everybody's got rose-colored glasses on at the moment. But when I first took the council, when I did the citizens' input, I did bring up the net school spending. And the previous administration was all about, education, but yet they put education on the back burner, with a $3.5 million shortfall. This past year, we've also received a grant for the police department for $1.25 million, which $1.14 million of those dollars needs to be guaranteed in the 2016 budget. So you're already guaranteeing 1.14 of that money to be allocated to the next budget. So there's already 1.14 million gone from that budget, or that free cash that supposedly is going to be there.
Yeah, well, you're right, and we have a lot of numbers being thrown around, and I think the city does this intentionally to confuse the people, because you can get a very confused with numbers and how they're being moved around. But the other thing is, CJ, it's not only overtaxation, it's also something that's always bothered me about this community. What they do is, the people who deliver the services, if they retire or leave the job during a year, they're not replaced immediately. So it creates more overtime. It creates less personnel to provide essential services. For years, I watched firefighters retire from the job, and their positions go unfilled for almost an entire year. So the city could take that money from their Blue Cross and their salaries at the end of the year and roll it over into free cash. And that's done in every single department. And what that translates to for the real people is less service.
Yes, exactly.
Less service for our tax dollars while the city sits on these positions. You know, they won't go very long without one of their administrative positions being unfilled. Yet, when it comes to a firefighter, a police officer, a DPW person, a person who collects your bills at City Hall, they'll let that position go unfunded for a year or so. And that brings me to one of the problems with all these numbers. We're going to use an expletive, a word that is really a heinous kind of word to be used in this city. It's looked upon as it's almost, you know, we could create a furor by saying it, but I'm going to say it. Full and independent audit.
Oh, no.
An audit. That's what we need in this city. We have to know where the money is. You look at the Newton budget. You go online and look at the Newton budget, you'll see they have everything they accomplished last year in every department. They have everything that is set for this year. And then they have a very clear and concise list of all the expenditures. So anybody can walk in and go, all right, this is where all the money is. This is where it adds up. Fall River, you can't do that. Nobody can give you an answer. Even our city administrator. Full and independent audit, too many numbers, too much data, because data is just this pile of crap they pile on everybody to make them completely lose sight of what the real issue is. It's like, you know, the mayor provided data on snow removal. Where did he get that data? How effective is that data? It's crap. I want to see real time. What counts is, are the people happy with the way the snow was removed? No. Some aren't. And it's the same thing with services. We have a city that has a lot of poor people. We need services, and those positions are held hostage for free cash, and we need an audit. So how do you feel about that?
Well, we definitely need an audit. That's something that I think all three of us have discussed privately. The audit is something that is definitely necessary. I think that they're going to find that they may not find everything, but I think they're going to find something. And obviously, in the last 5 years, we have seen money is not being used appropriately. They've been mismanaged, and that was from the previous administration. We still can't grill the new administration because they haven't had enough time to do that. But as far as those positions are concerned, I can kind of understand why people felt the way they did, bringing 2 new people in and trying to pass an ordinance to keep those positions, especially with one of them not wanting to move to Fall River. So I can understand the gripe there. But as far as the audit's concerned, if the council would have just did their job and they would have demanded answers on the budget originally, I don't think we would be in the position that we're in. And with the exception of 2 people, the rest of the council did pass that budget. And now the same council is asking for an audit. And it all seemed to crash down on them, obviously, when we had the recall, and everybody wanted to know the true answer of what was happening on the 6th floor. So it took a recall to start asking questions, and for 5 years they did whatever they wanted to do, and now we're still in the mess that we created.
Well, I know we're running short of time. So
yeah, and I'm just hoping that they don't forget what happened. And you know, the problem is that it's already starting to show that this was a one-time deal for them, in their opinion. But in the last couple of seconds we have, Josh, do you have anything you want to say to our viewers about yourself and about your candidacy before we have to roll the credits?
Well, I'll be brief. Just a city guy who was born and raised in the city of Fall River. I was not involved heavily in politics as I was when it came down to the recall. I was called upon by CJ and a few other people to show up to some of the meetings, and also to make clear that the city needed some change. So I'm running for city council because I want to continue to see that change. I'm running for city council because I have serious questions about the budget, and my first time I went to the city council and did citizens input, I spoke highly about the budget, and there are some issues that are going on with the CSO project and nobody doing anything about it. We also have safer grants that expired, and we continue to run our city on grants, which is not the right thing to do. We need to make sure that our budget is at the 100% and not at the 90%. So as a candidate for city council, that is my main obligation, making sure that that budget is balanced and making sure that we're putting people before politics and making sure that all the monies are accounted for 100%.
Well, that sounds good to me. Good luck. We need new blood. That's what keeps the city vibrant, new blood. Good luck in your candidacy.
Thanks for watching Spindle City Straight Talk. Have a great day.
and avoid the yellow snow.